To get access to this tool and any of our other tools that you might use in your real estate practice, visit leasix.agency/ultimate guide to register today. Don't forget that you can also subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on our latest tutorials and overviews of how AI can help you grow your real estate business and maximize the value of your time. So I know that content is one of the hardest things to plan and execute, especially for busy real estate professionals. It doesn't matter if you own a brokerage, you're an agent, you're running an association, it just doesn't matter. You have 900 things that people are screaming about you on a daily basis. So here is a quick way to optimize the way that you produce content and that actually speaks to the audience that you're going to try to connect with. And the first thing before we go into this is that what I'm about to show you does require you to have a good definition of your ideal client profile, meaning you have to understand the experiences that they've gone through in their life that lead to the decisions that they make about buying property, who they work with, whatever it might be. Having said that, knowing you need your audience, let's assume you have that, you can go into ChatGPT and start with this. And just start with this little prompt. This is analyze this ideal client profile. Right? And however you have your ideal client profiles set up is entirely up to you. We have a pretty detailed one that we use as for ourselves and for the people that we work with, but we want to get a good understanding of who that ideal client profile is. And in this case, we're targeting our ideal clients of agents. So ChatGPT, if you're using the 4.0 model, will give you a very robust understanding of that ideal client profile, but the more information you give, the better. I mean, this is not a heavy prompt, but the ideal client profile does provide a good bit of information. So now we want to go into this perspective of trying to get these content topics that we can research. And let's just say, for this ideal client, let's figure out the 10 most pressing questions they would need answers to in order to improve their marketing. Now that's, again, from my perspective as an agent, marketing agent, that is trying to help out real estate professionals. But if you were trying to sell homes, if you were trying to recruit agents, if you're trying to serve members, that question would be based on who that ideal client is, but the prompt is pretty much the same, right? Figure out the 10 most pressing questions that this ideal client needs answers to. And you just simply get those questions, right? And here we have strategic planning questions. How can I identify the best marketing channels to reach my ideal clients? How can I streamline my marketing workflow? And essentially what you've done here is come up with 10 core pieces of content that you can create that specifically leads to your audience understanding how you can help them. Because if you can explain things to your ideal client, like which affordable tools or systems should I invest in? Imagine if you're an agent and a big question is how can I afford to buy a home in this current market? I mean, that's a great question you want to answer. And in many cases, believe it or not, that question isn't being answered. So either way, you have 10 great pieces of content, which means you have a tremendous amount of content that you can create. But the next question is, how can I take these pieces of content and actually create something meaningful? So let's copy this question here, right? The most effective way to create a marketing strategy that aligns with my specific goals. We're going to go over to another AI platform called Perplexity. Now, ChatGPT does have the ability to search the internet and research topics. Perplexity is built, in our opinion, a little bit better for that purpose. So we're going to post that question in. What's the most effective way to create marketing strategy that aligns with my specific business goals and budget. And we want to answer that question from the perspective of the ideal client attached in the PDF. Right? So we're essentially taking that question, reusing our ideal client profile, and now we're asking Perplexity to give us a bunch of research sources from the internet that can help answer that question. And what we've essentially done is given ourselves an ability to identify ways to provide a deep and effective analysis of that particular question. So here we're going, right? We see digital marketing, core challenges and goals, online presence, all these kinds of things. Gives us a very good overview analysis of what it is that we can do with sources, right? So we have here 19 unique sources that we could use as part of our research from people that speak to this very topic, right? Here's one from Tom Ferry, Agent's Guide to Real Estate Marketing. Upkeep Media, 3 tips on marketing for real estate agents on a budget. I mean, it gives you a very detailed and deep source of information about what it is and how it is you can answer that question. And you can read through those individual sources if you'd like. You don't necessarily have to, because what you can do at this point is you can go through and ask as many related questions as you need to. So here we have some, and this is the great thing about Perplexity, is it will give you follow-up questions if you can't immediately think of any when you're reading through this. So just for test purposes here, show you how this works. What are some low-cost, yet high-impact real estate marketing strategies? So we're starting to dive down that rabbit hole and ask very specific questions. And again, it's giving us some of the similar answers before, gives us a new list of sources that we can reference, and it's giving us a very detailed understanding of this. So suppose we spend maybe about 5-10 minutes doing this, and we go back to our chat here inside of ChatGPT. So let's create a new chat, and we'll say again, analyze this ideal client profile. You could do this in the other chat if you wanted to, but we're just going to start a new chat here to get a good understanding of that ICP. And then we're going to go back to our research while it's developing that understanding. We're essentially just going to use the copy and paste here and say, all right, so build an understanding of how that ideal client would answer this question. And we go back into paste this question here, go back in, and use this information below to build that understanding. Right? So we essentially just go in here, and when we hit the little copy button here in Perplexity and paste it in, you see that there's actually links to all the sources. So you have all the links there, which again ChatGPT can access because it does have internet connectivity as part of its model, and we just go ahead and paste all of that information in that we built an understanding of. Right? And it says here, Agent Alice would likely answer that question based on the following information: begin with clear goals, adopt cost-effective digital strategies. All right. And Alice's answer in her own voice: to create a marketing strategy that truly aligns with my goals and budget, I need to focus on what works best for my business without wasting time or money. You can read through that if you want to, but now we want to create a core piece of content and say, okay, let's take that understanding and give me an outline for a blog post, long form, that I can post to my website. right? So it's going to give us an outline here for what that blog post can look like, and it gives us a hook, the problem statement, the thesis statement, and creates each of the individual sections based on that understanding that we talked about. And it even gives us a closing call to action. And now we'll say, all right, let's write that blog post section by section. Start with section 1. All right, so we've now essentially in just about 10 minutes created a very detailed analysis of what it is we can do to answer that question. Next section. So we'll breeze through the sections because there's actually one more thing that you can do with all of this content to further plan the effectiveness of your marketing presence. And we'll go ahead and talk about that in just a second when this whole blog post is written. So this is actually the final output now inside of a Google Doc, the full blog post, right? And it gives a very, very detailed blog post that you can post to your website. Now, a couple of caveats with this, obviously. This is not necessarily SEO optimized, and it isn't necessarily written in your voice. But again, just like the ideal client profile, that sort of work should be done beforehand so that you're actually writing and influencing the way that you write these articles with your AI employees in the right way. But nevertheless, so we take this full blog post here and we say, all right, so taking this full blog post, give me 5 pertinent quotes that would directly speak to my ideal client. Right, and just paste the blog post back in there. And now we have 5 quote posts that we can create. So think of your marketing strategy as a roadmap. Your online presence is the foundation of your marketing strategy. By consolidating tasks, leveraging automation, and focusing on high impact activities, you can streamline your marketing efforts. All of these quotes are what we call splinter content, and the blog post itself is what we call a pillar post. So what we've essentially done here is repurpose that content, and we can put specific calls to actions to either book a discovery session, read the blog post, subscribe to our newsletter. We could test out our calls to action based on the content of this post with these 5 posts here. And we might also say, taking the blog post, develop 5 graphic ideas and give me prompts for Midjourney that I can use to craft those graphics. So again, we're splintering off the content in another very, very purposeful way. At the end of all of this, the idea behind this is you can create weeks of content for your real estate business that 1, speak to your ideal audience, and 2, are very clear about the core question that you are trying to answer. Remember, the core question comes back to providing clear direction for that ideal client. And that clear direction is, in this case, is what's the most effective way to create a marketing strategy that aligns with my goals and budget. That's a question that every real estate professional is asking all of the time. And business goals generally mean, how can I make the most money while spending the least amount? Well, here's a good specific answer for that in long form, and you've then created multiple ways that you can splinter that content out. And the way that you can think about this optimizing your strategy is just in about 10 or 15 minutes, we've created now 11 pieces of content that are very specific to the person we want to speak to. And if you have multiple ideal clients, you can have multiple pillar posts and pillar splinter threads, and you can start to create content very purposefully, very specifically, very quickly. And the nice thing is, when you're using ChatGPT Pro and you're using Perplexity Pro, it fits within that monthly marketing budget of about $100 or so. Use this stuff, test this stuff, create ideas, and connect with your audiences. But again, the last caveat to all of this is to know who you're speaking to and to know your brand. Because if you don't have those things, all of this content is meaningless because it's not saying anything. Remember, your brand is your identity, and the people you're speaking to need to know how to identify you. So if they identify your brand as being a problem solver and helping them find answers to their questions, then you've done a successful piece of marketing using a content strategy that only takes about 10 or 15 minutes of time per piece of content that you can use for weeks on end.